here is your Apple Blitz collecting bag. You can find your folder, which on the front page has your list of supplies. You can check that all of your supplies are in your bag. You should have a measuring tape. It might look different than this, but at least one kind of tape, a hammer, a cutting board, a bag with some writing utensils, Sharpies, a knife, and some flagging tape for a drip line, measure, some envelopes for a leaf sample, a bag with a white DBH tape, some thumbtacks and chalk, a bag for adding your tree tags, some nails and alcohol prep pads, another bag with Band-Aids and hand sanitizer, a clipboard for holding your data sheet, as well as an envelope for collecting all of your leaf samples.
Inside of your notebook, you're going to have a list of steps. So number 2 is safely locate your tree. Please be aware of any exposed roots or any old fencing that might be laying on the ground, especially in open spaces. Make sure that you can safely access the tree and then head to it.
Step 3 is to decide what data collection sheet is needed for the tree you're at. So if this is a brand new tree that has never been tagged before, then you'll use the full data collection for a new tree. And you'll walk through items 1 through 35. If the tree already has a tag on the trunk, then you'll use the revisit of the tagged tree, which is a shortened version to check on a few of our data collection items. The last form of data collection is what we call the short survey, which would be used if the tree you're surveying is very close to some other trees that seem to have the exact same fruit or very similar fruit, and it might be likely that the tree is the same as the others in a clump. And in that case, we don't need to record all of the same data. You can just record a small amount of data, also tagging the tree. The second reason you would use the short data survey is if the tree is really, really small. If the trunk diameter is between 4 and 8 inches or less, you would use the short survey.
Now we're ready to collect data on a new tree. It's really important on your form to be sure that you put down the names of the collectors who are in your group, the name and the email of the data keeper, whoever is writing down all of your information, the phone number of your data keeper, the date that you're out, and also the tree tag ID that you're going to be giving. You'll find that tree tag ID on the silver Boulder Apple Tree Project tree tag.
Next, you'll want to tag the tree. So find a spot, this tree's already tagged, on the main trunk that's really visible so that somebody is going to be able to find it again. So for example, you would take out your tree tag bag. You can use the alcohol prep pad to just sanitize the nail. And then you would put the tag up to the trunk, attach the nail, and hammer it in, leaving about an 1/8 inch of space between the head of the nail and the bark.
And now that we have the tree tagged, we need to determine whether or not it's private or public property. We need to assess the tree location. If it's a private property, we need to put the street address. If it's a public location, put the nearest cross street or trailhead. And the next thing we're going to do is get the latitude and longitude of the tree. Most people have a cell phone, and what you'll want to do is go to your map function in your phone, and then you are going to press on your location to mark your location. When you scroll up, it will give you your latitude and your longitude. You'll want to record that on the data sheet.
Next item is tree height, which we're going to estimate by marking the 5-foot mark, making a mark with chalk on 5 feet from the ground on the trunk. Then we're going to back up and look at the full length of the tree, estimating about how many feet tall the tree is to the tallest top of the foliage. So once you have your chalk line, you can line up your clipboard so that the bottom of the clipboard is at the base of the tree and the top of the clipboard is at the tallest branch. Then what I like to do is use my fingers to estimate that 5-foot mark and then use that to ladder up the rest of the tree. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and it's a little bit higher, so I'd say about 30 feet is the height of this tree. Just an estimate.
Now that we have the height measured, we're going to measure the drip line of the tree. The drip line is the widest part underneath the canopy of the tree from the farthest away branches. We're going to use the big measuring tape. In some cases you might have a much smaller measuring tape, and the flagging. What we're going to do is place the flags at the widest parts underneath the tree. If you have a smaller measuring tape, you can use the flags to help you measure in increments and then add up the total distance. Now we're going to lay the tape.
This is your DBH tape. DBH stands for diameter at breast height. So this tape has 2 different measurement sides. The first side is just a normal ruler going from in inches and feet. The second side says diameter inches to 64ths. And so what this is doing is calculating the diameter of the tree for you. You can see that 1 inch is represented with a slightly larger number, 2 inch, 3 inches, and these numbers in between, 16, 32, 48, represent the number out of 64ths of an inch. So when you wrap this around the trunk, you'll look for your larger inch number, so this would be 4, and then you'll line up with wherever the trunk is and mark the number out of 64ths of an inch to the number out of 64ths. So Typically, the DBH is measured 4.5 inches from the base of the tree up the main trunk. In apples, there's many times not a single trunk and a lot of branching. In this case, we see some branching, and so we actually will measure just below the first branch. So what I'll use is a piece of chalk to mark my spot. I'll take a tack to lightly press in. I'll attach DBH leader here, wrap it around, so here we see this trunk is 15 inches and 34.46.
My classes are...
In some cases, there might be multiple trunks, or the trunks might look different. And so you can look at your protocol on page 1 and throughout the protocol to see more about where to measure with different growth forms of the trunk.
Okay, the next thing we're going to assess on the tree is whether or not there's presence of trunk rot. This tree does not have any trunk rot. It's beautiful, it's very well maintained. When you open up your field notebook, you'll see in the very back there'll be images. So under number 14, trunk rot, you'll see 2 different types of trunk rot. So compare your tree to what these look like, and also just look to make sure the trunk is entire. If there's any big pits missing, if there's a lot of black and scorch marks, a lot of times that's an indicator of trunk rot.
Next on the sheet is checking for fire blight. You'll mark whether it's present or absent. So how do you tell if the tree has symptoms of fire blight? There will be some branches that are intact, but the leaves have died and are forming a shepherd's crook downward. The stem would be very black, and so you want to be careful not to confuse fire blight with a broken branch, but a branch that is just intact with its leaves dead and clinging. So once you decide if it's present or absent or not, if it's present, you'll want to assess how much of the canopy has fire blight. So if you back away from the tree and inspect all of the branch tips, you'll make an assessment out of the categories given, and if there's a lot more than 15% of the branch tips showing fire blight symptoms, that might be a really high occurrence for a tree.
Next, we're going to gather leaves for our DNA sampling. You're going to want a leaf envelope, and you'll use the Sharpie from your bag to write the tree tag number onto your envelope plus the date. Please use the format of the day, the month, and the year. What we want to do is grab 3 to 4 leaves from different parts of the tree. You want to be sure that you're actually getting leaves from the tree and not from the rootstock that's close to the ground. To do that, follow a length of a branch, go to the end, and you're going to pick a nice green, healthy leaf. You want to avoid avoid getting leaves that have lots of brown edges. After you get your first leaf, follow another branch to another portion of the tree, grab your second leaf, then follow another branch to a third side of the tree and grab a third leaf. If possible, go ahead and grab 4. 3 is the number we're shooting for, but 4 is great for just in case anything goes wrong. Be sure you put your leaves nice and flat in the envelope, and then you're going to put it in your large collection envelope that says apple leaf samples.
Next, we're going to estimate the amount of color change on the leaves within the canopy. So we have a few categories. 0 colored leaves, less than 5% of the canopy has colored leaves. 5 to 24%, 25 to 49, 50 to 74, 75 to 94, or greater than 95% of the canopy. For this tree, we just see a couple of leaf color changes. Very few, so I would estimate the leaf color change at less than 5% of the canopy. If you encountered a tree that had a lot of color change, a good strategy is to break the canopy up into pie slices or chunks and try to estimate, is more than a quarter, if you gathered up all of the colored leaves, would that cover more than 10%, more than 25% of all the leaves in the canopy? Next, you'll check if there's been any leaf drop or any fallen leaves that have come off the canopy. And to look, you'll look at the ground beneath the canopy to see if there's a similar type of leaf growing that was from the tree on the ground. Here we see there has been at least one leaf that has dropped from this tree, so we would circle yes. You'll want to capture a picture of the whole apple tree, including all of the canopy, trunk, foliage. You'll also want to take a photo of fruit as it hangs on the tree. You can include some of the foliage in the picture, but make sure the fruit is your main focal point. To estimate the amount of fruit hanging on the tree, you have several categories to choose from. So when estimating the number of fruit, it helps to count a small section and use that as your baseline to estimate throughout the whole canopy. So here I might count a clump of 10, estimate this whole area is at least 100 fruits, and then multiply by the number of branch area around the canopy. And so I would estimate this tree has between 1,000 and 10,000 fruits on it. Also want to estimate the number of fruits that have fallen to the ground. Again, you have the same categories, and you can estimate the amount of fruit on the ground in a small area, and then walk around the canopy, multiplying by how much area there is based on the area you've counted. So here, I count only about 20 fruits. And if I estimate through the whole canopy area, it would be between 100 to 1,000 fruits that have dropped from this tree.
So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some photos of the fruit. We're going to use the dot paper from our folder. We're going to use the sticky note to write the tree number and the date using the format day, month, year. Be sure that you can see the color matching on the bottom. And we're going to follow this method in our book. We're going to have a top of the fruit photo. We're going to do a cross section. We're going to have a bottom of the fruit. We're going to have a side of the fruit, and then we're going to have a lengthwise cross section. We're also going to take out the seeds and note the color and number in a single fruit. Let's see. So to make things easier, I like to cut the top off so it'll lay flat. And then I like to have that for the bottom. I'll do another cross section. And you'll note in this particular apple, there are no mature seeds. We'll use this apple for the side view. The lengthwise comparison. And so since we don't have any mature seeds in any of these apples, there won't be any mature seeds in the photo, and we'll make note of it on. And now we take a picture of our data sheet. I take 2 just to be safe. And we're going to email that with our completed data sheet.
So in the case of this apple, we didn't find any seeds, but we cut open a bunch more apples to find 2 seeds. One of them was mature, and one of them was immature. And so for our seed coat color, we have a dark brown and a white. And because we only had 2 seeds, we would do 50% of the seeds were dark brown, 50% white is what we would record. And for the number of immature seeds, we also would do a proportion of 1 out of 2, if this is what we found in the 5 apples that we cut. You'll take a look at the fruits you used for your cut fruit photo, and you'll record the dominant color that you see on the fruit skin. So in this case, all of our fruits are mostly red, so we would record that the fruit dominant color is red. You'll record if you saw whether insect use was present or absent as well. These are examples of insect use inside the apple. You'll want to note if any of the fruits seem to show rotten on the outside of the skin on the fruit, or if the inside of the fruit is rotten. Could be due to insect damage. You'll want to check the apples you cut for dryness or moisture, and if it's been a while, you might want to recut a fresh sample to feel. This apple is pretty moist, so that's what we would record on the data sheet. For fruit texture, we want to see if it's crisp, soft, or mealy in texture. And in this case, we see that it cuts really smooth, it's super firm, and so I would call this a very crisp apple. flavor, you get to taste the apple. We have 4 different flavors to mark whether they're present or not. Sweet, tart, bitter, and astringent. So take a bite of your apple and you'll record whether one or more of these flavors are in the apple. In this case, this is a really tart and bitter and astringent apple. And astringent means that it has a drying of the mouth out, which is an important note to write down about the apple. You'll also record if the apple reminds you of a variety you've had before, and then mark whether you think it might be good for fresh eating or not.
And now that we're done collecting all the data, we're going to take a picture of our completed data sheet, and then we're going to email the data sheet, the picture of the cut up apples, the picture of the tree, the picture of the hanging fruit, and then also a picture of the circular tree tag number, and you're going to email that to the email address in the booklet, and that is appletreedata@colorado.edu, and be sure to put in the subject line the tree tag number for this tree.